Ladies and gentlemen and fellow freedom fighters, this is Bushy Martin from Know How Property Finance, and welcome back to the Get Invested podcast. You know, in our lives, we tend to focus on how to invest our resources to get the greatest effect. But this particular instalment of the Get Invested podcast comes in a noticeable shade of altruism. This is because my guest in this week's show is Hunter Leonard. Hunter is the founder and CEO of Silver & Wires. He's known for helping large businesses with marketing strategy, including Bluescope Steel, NAB, Bendigo Bank, Melbourne Brick, and many more. He's also the author of several acclaimed books, a successful businessman, and someone with a sharp eye for giving back. Sitting down with Hunter and picking his brain was an absolute pleasure. In our chat, we covered his early investments, his career, how he thinks about money, his definitions of success, how to allocate your resources, the productivity potential of older folks, and the importance of giving back to your community. As we go through the episode, you're going to find some absolute pieces of gold, which include some great topics like why an investment in yourself is often the most important one to make, the different perspectives on what it means to be successful, the difference between an investor and an outvestor, the intangible benefits of altruistic work, and why so many people in Australia feel unfulfilled and what they should do about it. I know you're really going to enjoy this conversation. I've got a lot of time for Hunter. He's a man with a real passion and empathy, very clever in his communication, and is doing some fantastic things in helping the mature employees start a business after being retrenched late in their working life. So sit back now and enjoy a fantastic conversation with Hunter Leonard. Before we get into it, if you're a time poor professional who's interested in investing but don't have the time, you don't have the expertise, you don't know where to start, you don't know who to trust, then grab a copy of my book, The Freedom Formula, that gives you all of the know-how. You can check it out at www.bushymartin.com.au or email me at hello@khgroup.com.au. That's hello@khgroup.com.au and mention Get Invested for a special bonus. I might add that all of the proceeds of the book are going to Living It Rough and Doing It Tough, a really dedicated group who provide for the needs of the homeless and their pets. So please get involved. And now, I hope you enjoy this interview.
Yeah, and I think it's really, you talk about the word true value, and I think that's what we've got to have people understand is the true value of wisdom and experience goes well beyond what you're paying someone in a salary.
Welcome to the Get Invested podcast, where we share great conversations with experts from all walks of life to uncover their secret know-how on where they invest their time, their skills and their money, and the benefits that this has created. You see, the truth is that everyone invests. Every minute of every day, we're investing our time, our skills, our energy and our money in something. Some of us are investing consciously, some unconsciously, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad, and sometimes for no impact. Get Invested will help you to start living by design, not by default. I'm going to help you to make it happen, not let it happen. You will hear the top tips on how you can live with conscious intent so that you can live more, work less, and leave a living legacy by investing now. Listen to the show to discover the top tips on how to get started, make the most of your investment journey, and ultimately to be living your dream, not someone else's. More episodes can be found on iTunes or at bushymartin.com.au/get invested. Thanks for listening, and now let's get invested. Okay, well, I'm here with Hunter Leonard. We're about to get invested. Welcome aboard, Leonard. It's been looking forward to catching up with you and have a chat for a while.
No worries, Bushy. Very happy to have a chat, buddy.
Excellent. Now, I'll kick straight into it, Hunter, and I'll just sort of get you to start by telling us about who you are, what you do, and where you're heading at the moment, mate.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess top line, I'm a husband, a musician, a cook, a business owner, an author, and a philanthropist, which kind of summarises what I do in life.
That's massive.
And where I'm heading at the moment is I'm right in the middle of starting a new business. We've been in the pre-launch phase for the last couple of years, and I'm now just starting to roll out the first of the products and services, which is pretty exciting.
Awesome. And the reason why you're doing that, mate, what's the driver behind that?
Well, there's two reasons. One is obviously my own financial security for myself and my wife, and being prepared for the future, but also because we have a bent in philanthropic endeavours is to create something that makes a difference in a social sense as well.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. Well, that's it sounds pretty exciting, mate. What I might do now is just sort of flip it on its head a little bit, and we'll go back to where it all began for you. And I'd just like you to take us through your life journey so far, but focusing on what you've invested your time and your money into, when and why, and what has it done for you and for others along that pathway.
Yeah, okay. So born in Canberra. I'll do the same thing as you say, and don't hold that against me. But my father and mother were running, or Dad was running his own business in Canberra when I was born, and so I sort of was born into a family of business owners, if you like.
Yep.
Then they moved when I was about 4 to Sydney, and I grew up and did all my schooling in Sydney and lived there till my early 30s.
Okay.
I guess investing when I was younger, it was when I reflect back on it, it was investing in myself and my friends. It was time outdoors and playing sport, and of course education. Although when you're at school, it's kind of sometimes more of a chore than something that's particularly inspiring. But my report cards at school were often things like inclined to be talkative.
I can't imagine why.
But then going to uni, I definitely look back on uni as being an investment in my skills and my education, which is probably where I really first started investing. It wasn't about money, though I did. While I was fortunate to go through in the phase of free university education, I did put myself through uni. I worked 3 days a week and went to uni 4 days a week, so I paid for all of my books myself and all of my petrol and travel to and from home and all that sort of stuff. So, so that was an investment of some money, not a large amount, certainly not as much as people have to pay these days for their education. But that was probably where I invested my time in was the university degree, which has been very useful right through my life, even though I'm not working in that field anymore. Yeah,
absolutely. So moving forward from there, as you progress through, take me through. With sort of talking your early 30s, take me through the journey from there and what you then invested in and where that's led to.
Yeah, so probably the first thing we invested in, actually, my father died quite young, and I was fortunate. My mum loaned me some money from his superannuation, I suppose, and I bought a small farm out in Nimitabel in New South Wales. So. Right. And that was more of an emotional decision to have a bit of space and have somewhere to go skiing with mates and stuff. And when we're talking a farm, people might be thinking something grand and glorious, but it was basically 60 acres along the mountain highway in Nimitabel and cost me about 70 or 80 grand or something. So it wasn't a particularly big amount of money, but it was a great property, and it was 45 minutes from the ski field. So I used to go down there 3 or 4 times a year and basically just chop wood and cut plants down and go skiing. And that was kind of a place to go and get away from work, if you like.
Yeah, you still got the property, Hunter?
No, we sold that after 20 odd years and got about the same we paid for it. So
yeah, okay.
Great investment from a commercial return, but obviously had lots of great time down there with our family and things like that.
A lot of fantastic memories there.
Yeah. And from then on, really, it's been Nicole and I got married in our late 20s. We bought a series of houses, first in the Blue Mountains and then a place in Summers in Victoria, and then more recently a house in Bentley in Victoria about 4 or 5 years ago. So we've always had houses. They started off as being houses, more holiday houses, and we rented closer to work, and then we'd go to our house on the weekend.
That's smart.
But now we own our house that we live in. We don't have holiday houses or anything anymore. We go on holidays to wherever we decide to. But it's kind of switched around in the last sort of 5 or 6 years, I suppose.
So the switch into investing in your own business, when did that kick off?
I started my first business at 35. So I had an opportunity to come out of employment. It was a contract signed on a napkin with the husband of a friend of mine who needed some help with his marketing, and so I came out of running an advertising agency and started Blue Frog in 2001.
Okay. Yep. And what was the at that point in time? Why did you decide to invest in your own business?
Well, I had always thought I would probably own one at some point. Having grown up with my dad running his own business at various times during my early years, he did work for other people, but at times he ran his own business, and I used to go and help him put floors down and all sorts of stuff like that.
Yep.
So when the opportunity came up, it seemed like the right time to have a crack. I thought, if I'm going to have a crack, I've got to have a crack now, otherwise I'll never do it. So, and at the time I was sort of pretty much overworking for somebody else, and I thought, well, I might as well go and have a crack and do something myself. So,
yeah, and that's obviously gone pretty well for you, mate.
Yeah, look, it's been challenging, but more fun than challenging over 16 years. We've certainly had some times that were would challenge anyone, I would have thought, but we're still going after 16 years. So
yeah, that's a testament in itself.
Yeah, and I certainly love being able to take it in whatever direction I decide, as opposed to having to worry about somebody else's thoughts on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dig in a little bit deeper on the investment front, and let's talk about the money side. What was the first dollar that you invested, mate? Was it that property that you spoke to me about, or was there something? Yeah, I'd say
it was probably the first real dollar of investment was into the farm.
Yeah. Okay. And if we look back now from where you currently sit, you're feeling happy about how you've invested your time and your money and your resources to this point?
Yeah, I think generally, I would have probably thought twice about buying the farm. Although we had a lot of time out there, it was pretty hard to sell. When we went to go to sell it, it took a long time to sell, and then we didn't make any money on it. So it probably cost a fair bit of dough. But then you got to balance that against having, 4 weeks of holidays a year for 5 or 10 years for free.
Exactly.
Except for a bit of firewood and cutting things off the property. So
it's actually a pretty cheap holiday in that regard.
Yeah. So it probably wasn't the best investment from a financial perspective, but then the recent one in Bentley's been awesome the last 3 or 4 years. Yeah. Bentley's gone off really well. So
it'd be brilliant.
Swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, awesome. And so if you were talking to your 18-year-old self now, looking back, what will you advise him to invest his time, his money and his skills in? Anything different to what you've done?
I'd probably say buy in the city, not the country, from the farm perspective. But in terms of the education and investment in skills and stuff, I would do it exactly the same way I did. So I'd be saying just do what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because I still use my science degree skills in my daily work now. The thought process of test and measure and experiment with things still runs very strong through the veins of the way we do our marketing with our clients. So
I agree with you. We had a food for thought session just the other evening for a bunch of our investors, and it was an on the couch fireside chat type exercise, and someone asked me to talk them through my investment journey, and I said, look, the first thing that if I was talking to myself as I was 18, I'd invest in your skills first. Get really good at something, whatever that is. Mightn't necessarily be your passion, because quite often your passion isn't going to give you an income, not always. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Once you've got to a point where you've invested in your skills, then you put yourself in a position where potentially you can build your own business or drive a very strong career. And that gives you the opportunity to invest in things that are going to replace that income and then sustain your lifestyle long term. So in the context of all that, what does success mean to you? Everyone's definition is different. What's your definition of success, Hunter?
For me, it's really just being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it, and that could be anything from 15 minutes having a play of the trumpet, as I was showing you. To a day's bushwalking, on a Monday, not a weekend, if you know what I mean. So, for me, it's small. It could be small things and large things. It's not about, and of course that does relate to having the money to be able to do that, or creating the time to be able to do that. But really, it is just at any moment in time being being able to do the things that really light your fire rather than somebody else's.
Totally agree. Yep, that's spot on. And one of the terms that I often talk about is the difference between an investor and an outvestor. And an investor is someone who invests in themselves. An outvestor is someone who invests in helping others, and you can be both, or you can be one for a time and then become the other. Where would you sit on the spectrum of investor and outvestor?
Definitely more interested in helping others than myself. I'm a very extroverted person from a perspective of I don't mean that by outgoing. I mean my focus is on helping others, and then the flow will come back. And I've always worked out that if you invest your time in helping others, then you do get a flow back. It's a bit of that rubbish in, rubbish out. Like if you give crap out to other people, you're likely to get crap back.
Yep.
But and pretty much in running my businesses, I'm kind of doing both at the same time, because I'm investing in delivering a service to someone, but that service is always helping someone as well, if you know what I mean. So I'm kind of fortunate in the way we run our businesses is that we get both at the same time.
Well, the Silver and Wise exercise, the transformation that will bring potentially to the lives of people who quite often at that age are starting to wonder what the future holds for them. I can see that being the satisfaction that you must get out of seeing the light go on for those people must be quite amazing.
Oh yeah, and it's kind of mind-blowing actually how much difference we could make just by helping one person at a time. So I was in a conversation the other day with the Age Discrimination Commissioner, who's been appointed to oversee some of the rubbish that's going on in not just mature age, but in many age groups. And they're in possession of some data from a major study that was done that shows that putting just 5% more mature age people back into productive employment, and I include business ownership in that because that's a component of what we're doing,
of course,
could add something in the vicinity of $50 billion to the economy. So we've kind of worked out that it's roughly a 200 to 300 fold return on investment in our program and also in programs to put people in employment. And when you think of businesses, if you said to any business owner, give me $1 and I'll give you 200, they would just go, any day.
Kidding? Yeah, exactly. Where's the catch?
Yeah, but when you look at the model, the fact is, if you help an individual, let's say, take a very specific example, you help somebody get a job for $100,000, then that person will go and spend that $100,000 on maybe a deposit on a property, or they'll go and buy food, they'll go and pay taxes, they'll do it. So when you actually see what happens with that money and how it then flows through the economy, we can see that just helping someone and inspiring them to start a business, or inspiring someone to employ them for their maturity and their wisdom, can create this snowball effect that actually does return quite an amazing amount of positive return in terms of revenue or wages or taxes paid, but it also has the obviation of the negative side too. So it stops them going on to social benefits.
Of course.
It stops them going to see the doctor because they're feeling emotionally challenged for some reason related to losing their job or whatever.
Yeah.
So and when I was talking to the commissioner, she thought I was lowballing the estimate. She thought it was probably double what we were thinking. So I can't think of another business where I can make some money myself, because we are a for-profit enterprise. We're not a social enterprise.
Of course.
Make money for myself, help somebody else make money and be financially secure, and as a result of helping them, help the economy. So there's a triple win.
Absolutely. And I think this sort of leads me neatly into another pet subject of mine, and that is that a lot of Australians have this thing about money. And it's sort of painted as this evil thing that a lot of us are too scared to talk about. We sort of brush it under the carpet. My own view is, and if I was to paint someone who I have a fair bit of time for, it's someone like Bill Gates, who made a fortune putting computers on every one of our desks and and home studies, but what he's done with that to actually improve and save the lives of, he saved something like 6 million lives to date through his foundation, and he's spent $28 billion of his own personal wealth to help make that happen. And he's come out and said that he will spend 95% of his wealth by the time he leaves the planet. Yeah. For me, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this, Hunter, I see money as a great enabler for good. And I'm not scared of that at all. I'm not going to hide that fact that if I can build a successful business that can help people achieve their goals and then put that towards things that are going to make a difference, why should I feel uncomfortable about that? What's your thoughts around that subject?
Yeah, totally. I agree with all of that. I think that as a society, we've got to enable productivity. Yep. And then we've got to encourage those that are productive to do as well as they possibly can, and then to give back. Yep. So I see there's 4 categories in society. There's those that make money for themselves, and they become rich and wealthy at the expense of others. And I think we've got to minimise that group. Yep. We've got to maximise the group of people who are productive and can have the capacity to make millions in a business, who then go away and give millions back, just like Bill Gates. Yep. We've got to optimise the ability to support those who can't be productive for whatever reason, disability or abuse or discrimination. Yep. But we've also, the 4th category is the unproductive that are able to do something and don't. They choose not to. So this is the ones that could get a job, or could be productive in something, but they choose to live off others, and we've got to minimise that group as well. So I think there's only 2 we should be pushing, and that's the ones that have a capacity to make money and are willing to give back, or invest in philanthropic things, and also maximise the opportunity to help those that can't help themselves. Yeah,
the area that you're drilling into with Silver and Wise, I think there's a massive need there, given that a lot of corporates, when they start to look at the bottom line and where to chop, it's that middle management line where a lot of sort of mid-40s to mid-50s senior personnel seem to sit. Why do you think it is that there is an almost underlying ageism that flows through for whatever reason? What do you think? Why do you think that is? And given what you're doing as Silver and Wise, what do you think needs to happen to change that perception, to respect the true value that those individuals actually bring to the table?
Yeah, and I think it's really, you talk about the word true value, and I think that's what we've got to have people understand, is the true value of wisdom and experience goes well beyond what you're paying someone in a salary. Now, I can totally understand corporates saying, well, okay, I can get that same job done by somebody else, or I can remove it using technology or whatever, and that's fine. So you can't knock a corporate for trying to make money, because if they don't make money, well, we're stuffed anyway. So, sure. But I do think as a society we've got to be more Eastern in our approach. Now, if you look at the Eastern philosophies like China, Japan, and a few of these other countries, they revere people of an older age. They revere the wisdom, they revere the experience, and they make sure that there's a place in society for those individuals.
Totally.
So, however we do it, and I choose to not focus. I've done enough research to know what the problem is, but I'm not going to focus on that any further. I'm just going to find a solution and just do my bit to change it. Yep. But as a society, we have to consider the risk of not using the experience and wisdom of that person and allowing them to be productive and make money and pay taxes, because if they're sitting unproductive at home, getting sick and then drawing on the social purse, then you know who's going to end up paying the tax, don't you? It's you and me, Bushy. If we're still working, we're going to be paying 70% tax, and there's no one going to be left to pay tax. So
exactly.
We have to optimise, and I'm not just talking about mature age, we have to optimise the productive proportion of our population, those that are doing well enough to pay tax. Because I think the other day I heard the figures that something like only 40 or 50% of the population pays any net tax. So
is that a fact?
The rest are either breaking even, in other words, they take as much out of the economy as they give in, and a whole bunch are obviously, for whatever reason, having to draw on it, and that's okay because we know there's a percentage that will always have to draw on it, but we can't hobble the productive ones, and we certainly can't waste the mature age group who want to work but can't work because somebody thinks they're a bit stupid because they've got a bit of grey hair.
Exactly right. Yeah, it's spot on. Yeah, absolutely so true. This worship of youth, pretty scary concept in the context of where it's going to lead us as a community long term. And I agree. I don't want to get off on a tangent too much because what I like about what you're doing is you're recognising the issue and you're actually doing something proactively about it, which is awesome. Let's talk about switch to the future for a minute, more on a personal level, if I can, Hunter. You've covered off to some degree your future dreams and goals. What about personally? Where do you see yourself personally heading over the next 10 to 20 years?
Well, I'm the kind of guy that's probably never going to retire, so I've got to make sure I'm funding a working lifestyle for the next 50 years.
Join the club.
Look, it really my passion, I think now is I'm going to keep investing my time into the business and into solutions to handle this problem. I think this issue of mature age productivity is probably going to be the thing that I'll spend the next 30 years handling. Because I realise there is such a huge thing that needs to change, and it may take 10, 15, 20 years to change. It's a bit like an ocean liner. It's big and it needs to, the direction of it needs to change, but it doesn't happen the moment you spin the wheel.
Yes. Yeah. No, good call. Very good call. It's sort of starting the momentum to move it in that direction. What's your ideal lifestyle then, if we talk about that in the context of what you're doing? Is your current lifestyle your ideal lifestyle?
Look, I think I'm like everyone. I'd probably like a little bit more free time sometimes, but then I get bored pretty easily, so I can't sit on a beach for 2 weeks at a time. My ideal holiday is probably 2 or 3 days, but look, it's probably going back to my point about being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it. It's about just expanding the moments of time to be able to do that. So if I can build my business up and bring people around me so that I can step out for a month and go and it won't be a month of holiday, it might be to go and actually go across to meet people like these guys in the US that are philanthropic and learn from them, or to do a workshop, or to, again, invest in my skill and ability to do more so that I can come back and spin the wheel a bit faster with silver and rice. Yeah,
okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. If I was to give you a cheque for 10 million today, mate, would you be doing anything differently? And what would you do with it?
Mate, I can tell you what I'd do. I'd speed everything up. And we've just designed this collaborative program with about 7 other businesses. And the concept is to put 1,000 mature age individuals through this process. The process being first step, what's your plan as an individual? The second step being to stream them into either interim work, volunteering, or running a business, or a mix of all of the above.
Okay.
And we've worked out that it's going to cost about $10,000 per person to put in, which is kind of fun because it adds up to your number that you've got, which is 10 million.
Yeah.
If we invest 10 million in those 1,000 people, we'll end up with $500 million to $1 billion difference in the economy. So that's what I do.
Massive. Yeah, that's massive, mate. So that's a nice segue into what legacy do you see yourself leaving?
I would love the legacy that there was no age discrimination in Australia. As a societal attitude, if you like. So I would love it that it doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're 5 years old or 95, that someone took you on face value and judged you according to your ability to make a difference to others. So, and I'm sure you've seen this, kids of 4 or 5 can make a difference to their parents and grandparents, and grandparents of 95 can make a difference to the 4 or 5 generations that they've got as descendants. So if somebody just went, you know what, Bushy, you're your age and you've got value, and I don't consider your age to be a negative, that would be an awesome outcome.
Yeah. And so what do you think's going to need to change for that to start happening, though?
it's got to be, I reckon, a focus on what people do and what difference they make. So if somebody is productive and doing well, I think we've got to just enable that as much as possible, not hobble them. So you don't want to be taxing the productive more than we do. And I think we've got to then also take those that aren't able to be productive and just make sure we look after them. And that's human rights and and social support. And the ones in the middle that are unproductive but could be need to get off their arse and do something.
Is it also part of trying to re-inject levels of respect back in the very, very early education process? I just see from my own son going through school compared to the environment that I went through. And admittedly, I was a country boy, so I went to a very small country school where everyone knew each other. And, I think in my Year 12 class, there was 5 of us. So very intimate, very personal relationships, probably not the same way in the city. But what I've sensed is even the student to teacher relationship, there's no respect for the teachers. And this sort of ethos then seems to permeate all the way through. So for me, and I'm starting to sound old now, Hunter, but, because I think if we can sort of invigorate respect at an early age, working its way through, then those that are forgotten about on the edges of society, and there's a lot of old people who have a wealth of wisdom.
Totally.
At any age, right through to their 90s, they've got so much wisdom to give, but there's this perception that if it's not brand new and funky and technology based, then it's old hat and useless, and who cares?
Yeah, that's true. So I think we've got to have less focus on things and goods and consumerism, and more focus on what used to be called citizenship, which is that you have a responsibility amongst the broader society. As an individual, everyone should be allowed to have the freedom to do what they do and to be what they be, but they also have a responsibility to others beyond them. And I think if we just kept those basic values in place, we would be fine, and it wouldn't matter how much technology we had or how much new stuff we had. We would always remember the fact that yes, we have a place, and everyone else around us has a place as well.
Yeah, totally agree. Just flowing on from what you're saying there as well, I mean, we live in the lucky country, there's no doubt about it, and we've got everything. Let's face it, we've got everything. And yet all the research I do suggests that there's only a very small number of people in Australia who feel happy and fulfilled.
Yes.
Why do you think that is, and what do the happy and fulfilled invest in that the others don't, do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think it's about investing in moments of happiness, not trying to go towards some top of the mountain of happiness exists at 70 when I've got everything go wrong and I don't have to work and I've paid everything off, if you know what I mean. So I think we would be far better off if we focus less on physical objects and buying shit.
Yeah, spot on.
Not saying that buying some things isn't worthwhile, like investing in things as you talk about with your listeners and your book and your approach to business. Investing in a house is great, investing in business is great, investing in skills is awesome. But if we think we're going to find happiness by buying the latest shiny car or the latest shiny object, then I think most people would say that we've got another thing coming. And I saw a video the other day by George Lucas who was explaining the dark side and the light side of Star Wars, and he said it beautifully. He said that those that focus on compassion for others are the ones that have happiness. Those that focus on selfishness in themselves never get it. So
gold. That's gold. Yeah, nailed it there, mate. I've always felt that happiness is a choice. It's a decision, not a circumstance. So I get up in the morning and decide to be happy, and then if you've made that decision, it doesn't matter what comes at you. It's a matter of how you respond to it that counts. Whereas there seems to be, as you well elaborated on there, this sense that, well, I can only be happy when I've got this or I've got that or I've achieved this or I've achieved that. Well, it's I actually think it's the reverse. If you decide to be happy, then success, however you define it, because it is different for everyone, is more likely to occur because you've decided to be happy than I'll only allow myself to be happy when. Yes, so, Yeah,
that's
okay.
that's always a future proposition. Whereas if you think about, life is made up of X number of seconds, X number of minutes, X number of days, X number of weeks, and so what you got to try and say is, okay, how can I find a way to be happy for 5 seconds? And then once you get good at that, we'll find a way of being happy for a few minutes. And then once you get good at that, we'll find a way of being happy for a few days. And that really is, as far as I'm concerned, the puzzle. And it's not trying to think about trying to be happy when I'm 70.
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
when I buy a new car, because, new cars become old and new watches become old, and I'm not saying any of those things are bad. There's nothing wrong with having things, but don't think that that's where happiness lies, because it's not there.
No, absolutely dead right, mate. Okay, so if we look back on the conversation that we've had today, Hunter, in the context of your own situation, what do you believe you really invest in?
I think I really invest in other people and myself.
Yeah,
it's not in things. If I invest in other people and myself, then things come from that.
Yes. Yeah, nailed it. Sort of coming to the conclusion of things, if you could bring one person back from the dead, mate, who would it be, and why would you do it?
Probably my dad. Just to give Mum a companion, basically.
Okay. How long has Dad been gone?
Since I was 20, so
wow.
30 odd years. Yeah.
Wow, it's a big hole in her life and a big hole in your life too, no doubt.
So, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, that's a good call. My own father, he was Bushy Senior. I was Bushy Junior, and the reason I've kept the Bushy tag is to keep his legacy alive, Hunter, in actual fact. Because when someone says Bushy, I think of Dad. And very similar. I was blessed with my parents. A lot of people aren't. I got very lucky with mine, and Dad was an absolute legend. I still bump into people who go, "Oh, you must be Bushy's son," and I said, "Yeah, I am." And he said, "Oh, he was a great bloke. He was fantastic," and that's been, I reckon it's been nearly 30 years, mate. So I can see that you'd feel the same way in that regard. Okay, no, that's awesome. Something for the listeners now. If there's a book and or a podcast that you really enjoy, what should they be reading and listening to?
Well, mate, I'm probably going to go a different angle to what most of your interviewees would say. And I would say that if your listeners went to the United Nations website and they read the 30 human rights articles as defined by Eleanor Roosevelt and all her friends in 1947, and they were able to apply those to their life, they would find things much easier for them and would be making it every day easier for someone else. That's gold.
That's gold. Any of those actually spring to mind that you can share?
Well, there's 30 of them, and I actually posted something the other day about it, and there's a lot of debate going on in society at the moment about various issues, which I won't mention here on the podcast, but everyone will know what they are. And the fact is that both sides of the debate are ignoring people's human rights, and those are things we all have the right to live and be free, and to make our own choices and to have our own opinions. And whilst I'm paraphrasing there, the freedom to be an individual and the freedom to make your own way in your life is really the fundamental of what the human rights are all about.
Totally agree.
And we can't, no one is allowed to make us a slave of their opinion. No one's allowed to stop us from being free to do what we want to do and to be the individual that we were meant to be. And so, for me, that is something that I've supported a lot, the human rights, and I think it's something that most people actually don't know what those 30 articles are. Say, I have a right to do something, but most of the time those things that they mention are actually not human rights. The 30 human rights are the 30 human rights, and they're the 30 that were defined by, and some of the things people say they have a right to blah, 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 they actually don't have a right to do those things.
Yes, that's a good call. That's a very good call, actually.
Or to vilify or to racially discriminate or any of those things, they actually don't have a right to do those things. They have a right to express an opinion, but they don't have a right to take those things away from someone else. So,
absolutely 100% agree. I think if there's one thing that I would like to see removed and this is probably pipe dreaming, Hunter, but it's judgment.
Yes.
Judgment in all of its forms, because
Yes.
every one of us is individual. Every one of us has a right to live the way we want to live without someone judging them from some artificially predisposed or ancestral thinking. Just doesn't make any sense to me.
No, totally.
Never has, never will. But the funny thing is, it's the ones, quite often it's those that are those most vocal about being judged themselves, who are in fact very judgmental in the opposite direction. I find it a really interesting paradigm, and the sense of entitlement that I see a lot of Australians adopt for whatever reason. I'm not sure how it's come to be. Is a bit scary in the concept of where that might lead us to.
Yeah, totally, mate. Absolutely. So anyway, that's a good place to go.
It is. No, I totally agree. A great way to wrap it up, mate, and I will actually go and read those now. You've pointed them to me, and I don't think I've read the 30, so I'm going to make sure I do that, and I'll be encouraging everyone else to do the same. Mate, really appreciate you spending some time with me. I know Silver and Wise is going to do very well. There's a massive need for it out there. There's a huge number of people who, at that important stage of their life, are losing confidence in themselves, and the hope and the transformation that you'll give to their confidence, to their health, to their emotional well-being, to the just about in every sense, and its contribution to the community and economy is fantastic. I haven't seen anyone who's recognised it and been prepared to back themselves and do something with it. So very keen to support you as much as I possibly can moving forward with that, mate. I know it'll do well, and appreciate you spending some time with me today.
You're most welcome, mate. Thanks for the opportunity, and really great to chat, bud.
Thanks, Hunter. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Well, freedom fighters, how good was that? To get a summary of all this investment gold in the show notes, just email me on hello@khgroup.com.au. That's HELLO@khgroup.com.au. Or check us out at www.bushymartin.com.au/get invested. I look forward to joining you next week for another episode of the Get Invested podcast. So thanks for listening, and as always, dream as if you'll live forever and live as if you'll die tomorrow.